Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today I'm going to demonstrate how I painted this winter scene from a mixture of memory and imagination. The focal point is a young silver birch that I saw on a recent walk. It's older than a sapling but not yet fully grown. The distant ochre hedge is also something that caught my attention on another walk. Using the rule of thirds, I composed the layout with just a few pencil lines and decided to put the edge of a frozen lake in the foreground. Leaving the top 2/3 of the paper for a big sky adds to the wintry feel of the final painting. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm starting with the sky. Keeping it simple with a few big clouds using a watery mix of yellow ochre. This is Saunders Waterford 300 gram rough white paper. Used it lots of times, it's a really nice paper to work with. I'm painting wet on dry, and I'll blend the colours together wet in wet. This allows a little bit more control for me over the white areas. I want to retain some of the white of the paper for the lighter parts of the clouds. This is a mixture of cobalt blue and a touch of permanent rose, just to grey the blue down a bit for the shadow areas of the clouds. Just keeping it loose, wet in wet. It's a totally made up sky, but I've painted lots of skies like this, so it's just a bit of experience really. Not difficult to do. Just adding a little bit more of the yellow ochre mix just to add a little bit of colour to the clouds. While the paint's still wet, you can add more pigment just to darken areas if you think they're going to dry a little bit too light. This is a mixture of cobalt blue and cerulean blue for the blue sky, just poking through the top of the clouds there. I'm just feathering the edge with some clear water. I've kept the cloud colours fairly light. I don't want them to dominate the painting, even though they're taking up 2/3 of the painting, the top half of the painting. It just adds to the wintry feel of the painting. Just adding a touch more pigment there on the sky. Let that bleed together. Using the same mix, I'm just putting the edge of the frozen lake in, just the shadow on the bank, and watering the wash down just for the to show the frozen ice on the lake. Keeping it simple, keep the colours simple. Just putting in a few shadow areas in the snow. As I said earlier, this is done purely from imagination. Just darkening the area at the edge of the lake. And this is cobalt blue and a touch of sepia to create this grey background for the distant hedges and trees. Just feathering the top with some with a damp brush and clear water. This is pure yellow ochre for that hedge. I saw this hedge on a walk, as I said earlier, and the colour struck me as being ideal for a winter scene, to add a little bit of contrast against the white of a snowy field. Just blending the colours together a little bit there, just because it's in the distance. I don't want too many hard edges. Just using the edge of a brush with some sepia mixed with yellow ochre to just to indicate some of the lighter parts of some bushes growing in the foreground. Just darkening the shadow under where the snow is overhanging the frozen lake. Just adds depth to the painting, and then feathering it with some clear water, really, just to soften it onto the frozen lake area. Just adding some more dark areas. This is a number 0 rigger brush. Just putting some shadow under that distant hedge on the snow. Strengthening the colour of the yellow ochre hedge. Just was drying a little bit too light for me. This is the silver birch. Just putting it in very loosely with a number 0 rigger brush. Keeping it simple. Don't try and paint every branch on a tree. Just suggest the shape of the tree. Just lifting out with a flat brush, so that take the background out. I'll be putting some detail on the actual silver birch shortly. This is pretty much neat sepia for these bushes around the tree. Adding a little bit of yellow ochre just to vary the colour. Just using the edge of this rigger just to indicate the bark on the silver birch. Silver birches tend to be mainly an off-white colour with some darker patches for the bits of bark, and as you go up the tree it becomes more solid colour. Just using the edge of the rigger just to put in some of the finer branches and bits of twig and dead leaves at the top of the tree. Just putting in a little bit of reflection on the ice of the tree and the bush. You'd hardly notice it, but it's there. Just adds to the depth of the painting, putting reflections and shadows in. Just adding a few bits of grass growing up through the snow. Just darkening that shadow under the distant hedge. Just adds depth to the painting. Just adding some shadow in the field, just where the ground varies. This is just cobalt blue and a touch of permanent rose for the shadows. Very weak shadows. There's not a great deal of sunlight in this picture. Darkening the top of the tree. It's dried a little bit light for me. And we're done. I hope you learnt something from watching this, how to paint skies wet and wet on dry paper, how to use a rigger brush to create the look of dead leaves and twigs at the top of trees. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. It always helps with YouTube. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos. And thanks again for watching.